All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the second episode of Debating the Dials. I am numb to this encore of this channel. I'd like to thank you all for watching the first one, which, it's somewhere I belong, so it's all looking pretty good so far. I'd first like to welcome our, let's go with the oldest to the youngest here, starting with Robert here. Robert from the great state of Georgia. How are you doing today?
Apparently old. Doing well.
Looking at Luca, it could be looking a little old. We're thinking, speaking of, this is Luca from the great country of London again.
I see you.
With someone from London. How you doing today?
Yeah, not too bad, not too bad. Rest in peace, Chester Bennington. Rest in peace, George Romero. Rest in peace, Martin Landau. But besides that, we're doing fine.
Yeah, yes, exactly. It has been a sad couple weeks with some passing. But, of course, like always, we're here to just engross ourselves into the entertainment and hopefully revel in some great entertainment that gets everyone's minds off of the sadness, because that's what we need today, right?
Perfect. I'm down for that.
And starting off, we're going to go with our first topic, which is the Emmy nominations came out last week. As always, a lot of great nominations and a lot of surprises and snubs as well. The big one, Feud got a big showing, and This Is Us from NBC bringing broadcast network shows back to the forefront, as it's really been a premium cable dominance with HBO and Westworld, obviously. You got FX with Feud, Atlanta. Netflix even got into the game with Stranger Things is looking had some great nominations. So going into it, Robert, what was a big takeaway from you with this nominations?
Pardon me. Just again, the dominance from your pay cable, and now with Netflix coming in hot on HBO with the number of nominations it has. I was really surprised with Stranger Things. As much as I love the show and I love the hardcore science fiction and horror aspects of it, it's not exactly the type of show that you would expect to get nominated. It isn't a message show. It's just good, solid 80s science fiction. And I couldn't have been happier for it.
Absolutely. It was a great thing to see. Definitely surprised about David Harbour, but that was definitely a welcome sight. It's clear David Harbour is really blowing up, especially with the new Hellboy casting of him. Luca, what was your takeaway from this Emmy nomination process?
Similarly, fan of Stranger Things, and it was good to see a lot of kind of genre fiction getting in there. Overall, I'm not a fan. I'm not a fan overall. There were a few things. I was really glad Handmaid's Tale got nominated. Blackish, I think, is a really, really good show. I enjoy Veep. I enjoy Westworld. But The Crown, not so much of a fan of. Stranger Things got a lot of nominations, and some that I thought were less deserved. The girl who plays Eleven, whose name escapes me. I think she's a great actress.
Millie Bobby Brown.
Millie Bobby Brown. I think she's a great actress, and for her age, I think she's fantastic. But I'm not sure she's necessarily up there for kind of outstanding performance.
That might have been more of a talk of the moment kind of.
Yeah, I think it's a bone to the fans in a lot of ways.
When Melissa McCarthy got nominated for Mike and Marley back when she was big with the Oscar for Bridesmaid and everything.
Exactly, and then McCarthy as well. Like there are a lot of SNL nominations in there, like a lot. On is it lead actress? There are 3 of them. Supporting actress.
Three actresses, Kate McKinnon, Melissa McCarthy, and I forgot the other one, but also Alec Baldwin was also nominated as well.
Yeah.
4
which,
acting nominations just for SNL.
The kind of the smaller nominations I like a lot. The Variety Talk series, I think, has kind of the standard lineup of sort of old faithfuls: John Oliver, James Corden, Jimmy Kimmel, Stephen Colbert. But besides that, there's not a huge amount. Ninja Warrior getting a nomination I thought was weird. Again, House of Cards getting a nomination when I think it's way past its prime. And I am not a fan of Better Call Saul. But I mean, overall, it's not terrible.
No, and going forward, and Full Frontal with Samantha Bee, I was glad got in there after I think they were royally snubbed last year, so that was a great comeuppance for them.
And it's also, I think it's nice to see sort of more female-led things, from Kimmy Schmidt to The Crown, and then Stranger Things has a lot of good female representation in that. So I think I think it's a good Emmys for diversity, which I think is always something that is, something we should aspire to along with awarding quality. I think that balance is really, really good this year.
No, absolutely. And speaking, Netflix can't really make headway into the Oscar game, but they're really getting in there with TV, which is a great sign for them, and gets really more. Unfortunately for every bad show, we do get some good ones, but you take the good with the bad, and then there you have. But you just got to go with what you got. Something I was a big surprise snub for me was the last season of The Leftovers. Leftovers was, unfortunately, it never really got the due that it did. It was should have gone on for longer. It was such a great show, some great performances. And I thought that really should have got, especially with Carrie Coon, who was just magnificent. And honestly, one of my favorite TV scenes of all time. If you've ever seen the second season of Leftovers, Justin Theroux has this great scene where he's doing a karaoke, and it is a haunting. Just watching him sing the 3 minutes of that song, it's breaking down, and it's a really great episode.
It brought me back to the karaoke scene in Silencio in Mulholland Drive.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good call. Nice. What was a big snub for you, Robert?
Rick and Morty for animated show. Are you kidding me? It's arguably the best show on television, although that falls to Atlanta. But there's not another currently that is as smart and funny and has as much, Bob's Burgers has a lot of heart. But seriously, Rick and Morty, it's consistently the best animated show on television. How that doesn't get a nomination is beyond me. Now, in season 6, they'll probably, past its sell-by date, give it a nomination, much in the same way that the Emmys tend to do for other shows, House of Cards. But that's just how the Emmys roll. They tend to be a little 2 to 3 seasons behind the really quality shows.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and actually, speaking of, I just saw, I believe something might be a little bit of antagonistic. I believe Luca just shook his head at the Atlanta. Is that a surprise that Atlanta was so well represented?
No, I was shaking my head at Rick and Morty being the best show on TV. Because I don't think it is. I like it a lot, and I think it deserved a nomination, but I don't think it's the best show on TV. I think the best show on TV, kind of in the past few years, which is kind of my choice for the big snub, is Fleabag, which is a BBC3 comedy about Phoebe Waller-Bridge and her sort of horribly messed up, sex-addicted life. And it had its first series last year. It was just 6 episodes, and it is some of the funniest and most darkly comedic and most witty stuff, and also kind of profoundly emotional in a weird way, that I've seen maybe in the last 5 years. Phoebe Waller-Bridge is fantastic. Olivia Colman is great as this horrendous godmother. Hugh Skinner is really good in it. It's got Bill Paterson in it. I think it's an exemplary show, written by and starring a fantastic actress in Phoebe Waller-Bridge, and it's just I think it had the balls to go so dark and so kind of gritty and grim in a kind of a dirt encrusted way for a kind of a comedy show that I think it really deserves a shout out. So that's my sort of big snub.
Show again, missed it. What was the name of the show again?
It's called Fleabag.
Fleabag. Okay, great. I'll look it up.
Fleabag, yeah. And speaking of Phoebe Waller-Bridge, I think just based on that show, she's in the Han Solo Star Wars movie.
Yeah.
is
Right.
I guess they were a big fan of R.I.P. Chris Lord, Philip Lord, and Chris Miller there, but they were a big fan of Fleabag, and they got Phoebe Waller-Bridge to be in their Han Solo movie.
Yeah, which I mean, I'm predicting might be the best thing in the movie, because I'm not too hopeful about much else. I guess Donald Glover always turns in a good performance.
Well, that's what happens when you have Howard directing anything. He's the pinnacle of mediocrity. Hopefully, he doesn't see this.
He's had some good movies. I mean, we can't all rely on the Da Vinci Code to be a
I love
but let's move on there. Let's go to Doctor Who here after our Emmy nomination talk. For all of those who don't know, might have been living under a rock. Doctor Who has cast its 13th Doctor, and forgive me, I think there was something big about the casting. I don't quite.
I must
put my finger on it.
Like
was it the youngest
is it
person?
a ginger doctor?
It was a foreign guy. Is that it? Oh, that's right. We had the first female Doctor Who, lucky number 13 for Doctor Who. And speaking of our resident Doctor Who fan, resident Londoner, Luca, tell us a bit about this 13th Doctor Who. Who do we got here?
So Jodie Whittaker. She's a British actress. She's in her, I'm going to say 30s. She was in Attack the Block, which is a science fiction kind of horror comedy with John Boyega and Alex Esmail and Leon Jones, and Luke Treadaway's in there as well. And she's most known now for being in Broadchurch, which was written by Chris Chibnall, who's the new Doctor Who showrunner. And she is fantastic in that show. I am very, very excited, both for, I would say, the new character. I think the new showrunner is looking really good. She's a great actress. That Broadchurch also has David Tennant, who played Doctor 10. Yeah, 10. That's my math is right.
Yes,
you're correct.
And and Olivia Colman, who was Clara. And it's one of the better things I've seen on British TV recently. And yeah, I think it's very, very promising. I really do. I'm really excited. Obviously, it's a controversial choice for many reasons. But I'm happy with it. I am.
Yeah, and and for those who are just for my American people, there is a British Broadchurch and an American Broadchurch, and I have seen the first seasons of both of those. And let's just say, go watch the British version of Broadchurch, as it is significantly better.
I have not seen the American version.
It's basically a carbon copy of the British one, just done worse.
Right. Just like
yeah, exactly. But Robert, what is your takeaway on the new Doctor Who, Jodie Whittaker?
LOVE, the choice. Basically, I will just reinforce everything that Lucas said. She is a fantastic actress. Broadchurch was great. Attack the Block, again, fantastic. She does nothing but exemplary work. Chibnall, who has done work with Moffat, wrote Torchwood, did Broadchurch. I think he's a perfect fit. It's going to be a seamless transition, and I'm actually excited to have a new voice for Doctor Who.
He wrote a couple of episodes of Life on Mars as well. Again, the British version, which is really, really good. I think that's how he got his start.
Right.
And wrote some Law and Order UK episodes. But he was like the showrunner and the creator of Broadchurch, which is the main thing that he's kind of done.
Right.
Awesome. And let's take a little back to Robert. Who was your first Doctor Who? Who was your first Doctor to get into it?
Shamefully, 11, Matt Smith. I was an extremely late bloomer when it came to Doctor Who. And funnily enough, I started with 11, then went back to 9 and got current. And then as I found online or via VHS, if anyone remembers those, older episodes, I started catching up on the older BBC doctors. But no, I'm with Smith, and they always say that your first Doctor's your favorite. And yeah, Matt Smith is my favorite. I always felt watching Tennant, as good as he is, he's a little too scenery chewy. You can see some of the wheels to his performance sometimes. And blasphemy to say, but here we are.
And Luca, who was your first and favorite?
My first was Chris Eccleston. I was introduced to it through the reboot, and kind of got into it starting there in the first series of the new Doctor Who with Chris Eccleston and Billy Piper, and loved it. Really, really enjoyed it. Kept watching it through Doctor 10, through Tennant. Fell off a little bit with Matt Smith because I think Moffat got. Matt Smith is great, and I really enjoy Matt Smith as an actor, but I think Moffat kind of lost his head a little bit. Went too heavy on the kind of the making the mythos of it, and the Doctor got messianic, I want to say. Like he was a Jesus figure a few too many times. I was like, how many times are they going to have him die for our sins? My favorite Doctor, having kind of gone back and seen it, is Patrick Troughton, Doctor number 2. Because he was a little older than like an Eccleston or a Peter Davison or a David Tennant, but not quite in the kind of Peter Capaldi, William Hartnell sort of age range. Like he was kind of a very fatherly, very sweet, but kind of brought in that real element of kookiness that the Doctor kind of has had basically since going through with Jon Pertwee, and then obviously Tom Baker, who's probably not the most iconic Doctor anymore. And it would be blasphemy to say that maybe 10, 15 years ago, but I think Tennant has overtaken him as a more iconic Doctor.
Yes.
But is kind of, the classic Doctor. But I think Troughton really had that mix of, he was very dignified, but he was fun. And I think that's the best sort of balance the show can have between being kind of respectable science fiction and like a campy show, which it is. It's always been a campy show, and no matter how good the effects get, it'll always essentially be a kind of a campy for fun show, which I think is which is the charm, and which I think is kind of what maybe fell off a tiny bit in the last few seasons. But I'm looking forward to seeing a return to it, because Torchwood always had that kind of slightly camp element to it, which I'm looking forward to hopefully coming back a little bit.
Okay. And I will be honest here. As many shows as I watched, I have unfortunately I never got into the Doctor Who universe. I've actually never seen a full episode.
Wow.
I've seen various scenes here and there. Actually, the big one going around now is the Vincent Van Gogh episode from the Matt Smith show. Something I've been watching. And but I watch a lot. Unfortunately, I can't watch them all. Maybe one day in my later years, I'll go back and circle around to Doctor Who. But I did not. Unfortunately, never got into that. But I am excited that we do have finally a female Doctor all the way 13 through. It is unfortunate that it's big news. It really should just be another casting, but it is what it is.
Yeah. It's a strange thing because Peter Davison, Dr. 5, has come out and said that he's a fan of the choice, but it means that young boys have lost a role model. Which I think is nonsense. I think it's absolute nonsense because obviously there are tons of guys leading genre TV and TV aimed at young people, but also why can't a female actress playing an alien be a role model for boys? I don't know.
There's no reason why little boys can't look up to little girls. There's no reason why little girls can't look up to little guys.
Yeah, I mean, when I was a boy, I wanted to be Xena Warrior Princess, because she was so cool.
Yeah, exactly. It's about the character. It's not about who's playing the character.
I had to get a new beach towel recently, and I got a Wonder Woman beach towel just because.
Well, there we go.
element, and B, it was a badass design.
See, there you go. Little boys, you can have whatever beach towel you want. That
Right.
is what you take away from this episode, is any beach towel you want, you should have.
This guy right here, Wonder Woman Beach.
But speaking of Doctor Who, IndieWire, a favorite website of mine, and I will have a link in the description to this rankings, published their 20 best sci-fi shows of the 21st century. And number one, depending on who you ask, a little bit of surprise. It wouldn't have been my number one. Doctor Who, though, did come in at number 3. Before we reveal the number one, Luca, what would be your number one sci-fi show of the 21st century?
It's hard. I wouldn't have considered the number one show on the list to be like specifically a sci-fi show.
Mm-hmm.
But in terms of the parameters of it, I would have probably taken it. I think it's the best. In terms
what is
of
your personal number one?
In the kind of the parameters of being a sci-fi show, Battlestar Galactica, I think it's probably the 2004 to 2009 series. I think it's probably the best thing that's been on like TV since 2000. That's been like kind of hard sci-fi. And it's got that kind of post-apocalyptic aspect to it, which I love. And it's a space opera, which is kind of the type of sci-fi that I really love. It's space opera because I grew up watching obviously Star Wars and kind of anime as well, like Captain Harlock and Galaxy Express 999, that were like these massive sweeping space opera type things, which is what Battlestar Galactica has that I love so much, and which is what I guess a lot of the later seasons of Star Trek have. Because Star Trek and Star Trek: The Next Generation are they're very into the sci-fi and the technobabble stuff. Whereas I think like Voyager and Deep Space Nine and that kind of thing are sort of a little more sweep you away in the space fantasy of it all. So I'd go with Battlestar.
And I would agree with you. Actually, I was talking with Robert the other day. Battlestar Galactica was what I think is the best. A personal favorite of mine, which didn't make the list, which I will be writing a strongly worded comment on the website, is that Eureka, a great show that's on Sci-Fi about 6-7 years ago. It ran for about 4 or 5 years. Starred Colin Ferguson, Sally Richardson Whitfield, Joe Morton from the Terminator series. It was a great show about this perfect little genius little town where they developed all of these sci-fi and different inventions. It was really great. Went a lot of different ways, and it was just something that really, I think, didn't get enough credit, didn't get enough popularity, and obviously, based on this list, does not get the respect it deserves. But Robert, what is your personal number one?
I will echo Battlestar Galactica with a close 1B, Futurama. All reasons that Luca said for Battlestar Galactica. How many times have you seen a reboot completely surpass the original material in the manner in which that Battlestar Galactica did? It was really had all the hallmarks that you would want from a show. Like I said, it had that space opera element. There was a maturity. We got a great swerve with how the Cylons were presented. No spoilers in case no one's seen it yet.
It's like 10 years old.
No spoilers. Never any spoilers.
Any spoilers. But yeah.
Watch Battlestar Galactica. If you haven't seen it yet, fuck you.
But the performances were universally fantastic, and I never can recommend it enough.
Edward James Olmos and Mary McDonnell in that film, in that TV show, are so good. Oh yeah,
absolutely. And then again, I have a soft spot for apparently for cartoon science fiction and Futurama. Ooh man.
I'll echo that. Futurama definitely should be on every list for everything, even best dramatic show, because it makes you cry.
I think if I can quickly add like a third sort of animation show, Ghost in the Shell Standalone Complex, I think is an anime from the 2000s, which is just so good and so in on
Great
the kind of the scientific
continuation of the
aspect.
film.
Yeah, absolutely. I think a better continuation than the second film.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which I think is would be another one of my favorites.
Absolutely great one. And we will be revealing the number one is Black Mirror.
It's good.
Which I will admit, I like Black Mirror. I am not a biggest fan as Black Mirror as other people. I think it's definitely more of a modern Twilight Zone, Outer Limits show, but obviously with the different social technology aspects that we have for the 21st century. But I do think I do think it's a little. I think it's a little too little to have number one spot based on everything else that's been in the 21st century.
I think also in a British political context specifically, which is what I'm coming from.
I'd kiss it lips if I could. You can plant me firmly in the absolutely loves Black Mirror category. I would have personally put Battlestar Galactica, but I'm not mad at Black Mirror being number one. There are a few shows that fulfill the premise as succinctly and as well as Black Mirror does on a consistent basis. Funnily enough, I actually started watching with the third season and then worked my way backwards. I feel that the first episode, National Anthem, is the weakest of the bunch. And I'm glad that I started working in reverse. And if you haven't watched it, do the same thing I did.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think probably my favorite episode is White Bear with Lenora Crickler.
Yeah.
Who it starts with her waking up and she doesn't remember who he is. And everyone's controlled by a television signal. And then satire ensues, we'll say.
A lot of. My favorite episode was Nosedive. And it's also, for me, the scariest of all the episodes. While not being remotely horror, it is the most plausible of all the scenarios that they've shown on the show.
It's the Bryce Dallas Howard one with the popularity rating thing.
Precisely. Yep. You rate every single interaction and how your rating controls your status in society.
There's a Chinese initiative called Sesame Credit, which is being done by, I think, the Chinese equivalent of Amazon, which is you're rated on how good a citizen you are based on like your online purchases, the websites you visit, and that kind of thing. And I think Nosedive is kind of a real scary thought, because that kind of thing is kind of being pushed as an idea in certain places.
Oh man, it's basically here.
Yeah.
I mean, you think about all the dating websites itself, I mean, we're pretty much there on ratings.
It's funny. I saw on OkCupid today on a woman's profile where she said, "Yeah, I wish that we could have that displayed in real life. That what your rating was." I'm like, I almost want to message her. I'm like, you need to watch Nosedive and then reconsider the weight of that thought.
Well, the best OkCupid message is, yeah, I think you should really watch this Charlie Brooker satirical TV show. It might make you reconsider your opinion.
Yeah, right.
We're society is hitting us pretty slippery slope, and we're inching closer and closer to falling off pretty soon here.
So the algorithm generation.
Yeah, let's move on to something we are of course going to talk about Game of Thrones again after the big ratings blast of the first episode of the sixth season, which. Very briefly, it was definitely a good start to this new season. People started moving into position. Obviously, I think we're all now in love with Arya even more. I think we can all agree. But this is actually not. This segment is not on-screen Game of Thrones. We're talking about behind the scenes Game of Thrones with David Benioff and DB Wise coming out and saying that they have procured their next show after Game of Thrones, which I think we all kind of expected they wouldn't be involved with any of the 4 prequels. I mean, you've been doing this show for 10 plus years now. all production, pre-production. I mean, I think we can. I think they are entitled to their break. But they are starting a new show that will be with HBO after Game of Thrones ends, and it is actually
Game of Slaves.
It has mired a bit of controversy. They are doing it with the Spellman wife and husband team of Spellmans, who are behind Empire, who are associated with Empire and The Good Wife. Where basically it's called Confederate, which if you've seen Man in the High Castle, it also takes a different historical perspective on what could have happened, where if the South would have won the Civil War. A lot of people, for semi-obvious reasons, have taken to talk about it and discuss it even before it's really anything. I mean, there hasn't been a show, there hasn't been a single cast member, there hasn't been anything that's been. It's just literally, it's going to be a show. But what do you, Robert? What do you think? As since as the two Americans here, what do you think about the Confederate as a show? Do you think that it is a little premature? But based on, again, the Benioff and Wise are not two strangers to controversy with their depiction of women in the Game of Thrones mythos. What do you think about their new show?
I will hope in one hand and poop in the other and see which one fills up first. All we have is a premise and a game. And I'm saying this as a white guy, that I will wait to cast the first stone until I've seen an episode. I have faith in the Spellmans as producers and writers of the show, that the voices of the Black characters will be treated with respect and be treated truthfully. But again, it's a matter of putting money where their mouth is. All four are great writers, so I'm not afraid there. But in our current climate, one could see this as a bit of supremacist fan fiction. And well-wishing, but I get the trepidation from Black people in that the white entertainment on the pain of Black people. I completely understand that. I'm coming from it from a pure storytelling standpoint, in that we shouldn't be afraid to ever tell any story. There is truth in everything, and we have no idea the tales that they're going to weave. No,
it's very true, and we do want to. It is a full, at least 2 years away, if not more. People deserve the benefit of the doubt until they break that. Until they break that trust and they lose it. Until they give you a doubt. They have shown to be. Great writers, well, even if they do along some lines. Luca, what do you think about the new show, the new show idea? And if you could write a show or where a different historical thing would have happened, what would you pick?
Oh God, I'm not sure I'd necessarily go as far as saying supremacist fan fiction, but Man in the High Castle was written by a Jewish guy. Created by a guy who's Jewish. I forget his name, but the creator of that show was Jewish, and there was, kind of some historical precedent of this guy, wanted to write in a way about the oppression of his own culture. That kind of thing. I'm not sure if I trust two white guys with the lead on this show. I want to think that two white writers can represent this story and this idea well, but I just don't. I'll be very surprised if this show airs. I'll be very surprised in this current climate if this show airs. I'm not saying it shouldn't, and I'm not saying it definitely should either. I'll be surprised if it does. If I'm completely honest, considering we don't have anything concrete for it at the moment, I will be surprised if it goes to air.
Absolutely, great point. Makes a lot of sense. We do want to mention the Spellmans. Their co-partners in the show are a African American couple.
Yep, no, that's completely fair.
So it's not like, I mean, obviously, if it just came out with just Benioff and Wise, I think it'd be a little bit worse. They do have the Spellmans who they came up with this show together. It was a group effort, so that is a great addition and great group there, especially with the Spellman's work on Empire and Good Wife. They're not just token hires, so I think if they can bring a lot of great addition to the show, that would be. But again,
sure.
Luca,
the Spellmans are taking producer roles, which I think if at its best will be a kind of a leash, and I think as long as the Spellmans are being deferred to enough on kind of the key decision making about the plot points and the representation, it does give me more comfort. But God, I'm not sure you could have chosen a worse time to do it. Maybe during the civil rights movement, but.
But you bring up a good point. And it'll be very interesting to see if this actually airs. But real quick, Luca, what's an historical moment that you would want to see the other side to, if something else happened in this case?
So I'm going to go ancient history. There was a war in sort of a few hundred years BC. I can't remember the specific century, between the Republican pre-imperial Rome and the Carthaginian Empire, who were Tunisian. They were based in Tunisia, and Rome won that war and essentially allowed the Roman Empire to flourish, and Carthage was completely destroyed. So that's where Hannibal the general comes from.
Yep.
I would love to see a show about what happened in the world, and it would probably be set kind of turn of eras in the kind of the sort of 100 BC to 100 AD era. If Rome had lost that war and had never become the dominant European power, because we have so much now from them. The amount of influence that they had in the kind of the time around the sort of the BC to AD transition must have been much more significant than controlling the entire Mediterranean. So I'd love to see the other side of that potentially. I think that would be really interesting.
No, that is a great pick. The Roman Empire has obviously has been a huge influence the past 2,000 plus years.
A lot of history.
Civilization. So that would be a huge, probably a dramatic difference between that. It's a great choice. Robert, what about you? What would be your picks to see what would change if you had a historical perspective?
I'm going to go for the easy joke and give props to Luca for not picking us not throwing off the shackles of British oppression. I would like to see a series where Christendom loses the Crusades and there is a reverse attack. And that they take the Muslim Empire, Islamic rather, I should say, moves west. Sorry, my directions. West into Europe.
What if Muslims took over China?
That'll show them.
Hey, well, they had gunpowder.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind seeing that.
Also, great choice. I love it. Mine was. I'm actually going to be in the same time. Looking like if Genghis Khan did not lose. Genghis Kublai Khan did not lose to Japan those times. If the Mongol Empire would have had the ability to keep on going, it would have been very interesting to see how far they would have spread, and how, if they could have gone even further, and how I mean, we're talking about everything. How civilization would have changed based on, based on a tsunami happening.
Right.
That is incredible that history changed just because of a weather event. Although we have the same thing with Napoleon wanting to attack Russia in the winter. So if people had weatherchannel.com back then they would have. I think we could have had some definitely interesting changes in history here.
That's what they say about Russia's two best generals are January and February. Because you don't invade them in the winter.
That is a nice pull there. Nice job, Luca. But moving on to our final segment, which will lead into our other segments. A tragic passing. We mentioned earlier. This is Nelson Ellis. Passed away at 39. If you've watched True Blood, he played Lafayette on there. Great character on True Blood. Really three-dimensional and then that kind of whole mythology of those characters. But what I'm talking about is not just him in True Blood, which I do like as a show, although it kind of went on its way there. But Nelson Ellis was actually on a favorite show of mine this past season called Elementary, which is a CBS procedural following Sherlock Holmes. And Nelson Ellis played just a complete 180 from his Lafayette character. Gives a really rangy, nuanced role where he's playing this gangster who's trying to then turn on his all of his friends and gangster to get them to stop because too many people are dying, and he'll basically do whatever it takes to stop that. And it's a great role for him. Unfortunately, one of his last. But my show that I think people should watch is Elementary. I think it's a great show for people who hate the delayed time periods between Sherlock. Really gives you some great episodes with Johnny Lee Miller and Lucy Liu. And of course, you always get to watch Lucy Liu, which isn't bad. But Elementary, you can see the back episodes on the Hulu, and it will return Sundays to CBS. Robert, what is your show that you're recommending to people?
Did you throw it to me or Luca? Sorry.
Yeah, Robert, what is your recommendation?
BoJack Horseman. Season 4 starts in September, so just 2 short months away to catch up with the first 3 seasons. Topically speaking, Chester Bennington unfortunately just hung himself, committed suicide due to years of dealing with depression, and that's really what this show is about. Ostensibly, you could look at it that it's a comedy, but it's not a traditional comedy, and it has dramatic elements, but not traditionally. On its surface, it's kind of a quasi-satire on celebrity culture and Hollywood, but really, it's about the character of BoJack, who deals with depression on a daily basis and how it affects his ability to function for good and for, well, actually it's never good, for ill. As someone who does suffer from depression, it is the truest representation of the disease that I have ever seen in any media. To the point that sometimes I have to stop watching the show because it hits too close to home. Mm-hmm. But it's got as truthful a voice as I've seen in representing a condition or a disease on television or even in movies. The fact that we get to watch his rise and fall over the course of the first 3 seasons was revelatory. It is funny, by the way. Even though it is about depression, it is very funny.
Now, Robert, that is a great choice. I'm also a big fan of BoJack Horseman, created by Raphael Bob Wigsberg. He has really hit on something there, and the amount of allusions and mentions in that show will just you can just watch it so many times over, and you'll miss stuff that you haven't got before. Catch it on Netflix.
And I love that they've never replaced the D in Hollywood.
It's still ladies and gentlemen, we are now in Hollywood, not Hollywood. And Luca, what is your recommendation for a show people should watch?
Well, so I'm quickly gonna shout out Nelson Ellis' recommendation as well. Watch Get On Up. It's a biopic about James Brown. He plays Bobby Bird, and who was kind of instrumental in forming that kind of James Brown image, that mythos. He was a singer and a talent scout who was sort of very, very instrumental in sort of the building up of the funk soul empire. And he's great in that. He's kind of smooth, but he's a little bit vulnerable. He's cool, but he's kind of always comparing himself to Brown, which I think is a really, really interesting performance, very nuanced. As for TV, I'm going to go back to Fleabag. It's so good. And if you haven't seen it yet, then see it. The next season is coming out, I think, next year now. If you want to watch a show about dealing with grief, if you want to watch a show about how we talk about and approach sex, if you want a show about misanthropy, it's incredible and it's hilarious and it's daring and it's not afraid to go to places that other shows won't, and it's sexual without trying too hard to be fan servicey or sexy. And it's got an incredible central performance. I think if there is anything you should watch on TV, I think if you watch one thing from the last 2 years, watch Fleabag and keep up.
Awesome, and that's a great choice. And I believe you can find that on, for our American audiences, I believe you can find it on Amazon. Is that correct?
I think it's on Amazon Video, yeah.
Yeah. So make sure check out Fleabag on Amazon. Check out BoJack Horseman on Netflix. Elementary back seasons on Hulu. New season on CBS. Great job, everyone. Some great choices to really give people something to watch. Luca, where can people find you if they want to see more of what you do? Where can they find you?
You can't find me here the next time I'm invited. Find me on Movie Battleground. Find me on Take 3 Productions occasionally. But besides that, I'm an enigma.
Awesome, yeah, great. And we have some great partners with the Movie Battleground Take 3, and we actually believe you'll be fighting in Movie Battleground tomorrow.
Yeah, tomorrow.
And I believe someone on this panel will be judging that.
Who might that be?
So yes, I will post I'll make sure people can see Luca fighting another buddy of ours, Chris Clark, in Movie Fights Battle-esque. And we'll post that as soon as it is uploaded. Good luck on that tomorrow.
I didn't need luck.
And then, Robert, is there anything you want to plug? Is there anything you want people to know about you or anything?
Oh, no, this is my first foray, so maybe we can springboard this into something else. And I hope to be back. I'd love to do it again. I've really enjoyed it.
Awesome. Thank you guys very much for being a part of this. I very much appreciate anytime someone sacrificing their time to help me, especially because it is such a brand new thing. So people don't even know if they're giving their time away for anything significant. But I appreciate you offering up your insights and helping me out. Please catch Debating the Dials, episode 1 that just came out last week. Episode 2 will probably be dropping tomorrow, Monday, or the day in which you see this. And then we'll get Debating the Dials episode 3 up next week. Topics will be determined then. Please like, comment, subscribe, and thank you so much for everyone being a part of this. Thank you for watching. I appreciate it so much. And in the end, it really did matter. So thank you.